Well, I just want to say that I'm really disappointed in myself because on Friday I I ordered a bunch of kava and I me and my roommate were both like, let's get like real muddy tonight. That's like the phrase for drinking a lot of kava. And neither of us had eaten anything and we drank.
Muddy? Get muddy on kava?
That's the phrase that I've heard. It's
That's
not a
a
phrase that I
common
use.
phrase. That's a
What?
common phrase. That's a common
I
like,
don't know. I'm
let's get
not sure.
lit.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like that, but I don't know how common it is.
I mean, I don't know how common kava is.
That's fair. But I was drinking. We drank a lot of it, and we were watching Tenet, and I wasn't really following the story, and I was getting real nauseous and gross. And
Yeah,
then
that's just the
today,
movie. That's not kava. That was just the movie
that's what
Tenet.
I thought. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not. I mean, this
I
has
watched
nothing to
that
do with
movie
Papa.
completely sober and I also got nauseous and had no idea what was going on. I guess things go backwards. I don't know. I didn't get
Yeah, I
it.
don't know. I don't know either. I'm gonna have to watch it like 3 or 4 more times, or never again. I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
I woke up the next day and I had this moment with myself where I was going, "Oh no, I think that I just got to give the rest of my kava to my roommate should she want it because I feel so gross and I messed up my morning because I had like, I mean, it's not a hangover or anything, but I woke up, I felt gross, and I was just thinking to myself, man, I can't like, I guess that this is kind of out too now. I can't, I can't, I can't use anything to like take the edge off. I gotta like find other ways that aren't substance based. Um, Even something like kava, where before Friday, I don't know, I was thinking about it differently. Like, oh well, people drink it ceremonially, and like um, it's fine if I have it every now and then, especially, and it's fine if I have a lot of it, like 1 day a week. But I just woke up and I kind of thought like, I guess I have to kind of just raw dog everything now, like because it's everything's kind of out. Like kratom is clearly addicting. Kava is not. It's not good, and uh, and so I guess that I just gotta go to the gym more. I don't know.
I
Um,
was hoping you'd say like kratom, see ya, or the kratom, hate 'em, and then you're like kava, sayonara.
you were
You know,
hoping I was gonna say that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I wish so. I wish that you were wittier. Coffee.
No, I think you wish that I was like whimsical. That's not witty. I don't know if that's witty.
Well, okay, maybe I'm in a whimsical mood, but something like that.
Well, that's okay. Okay.
We're trying to make Instagram red like clips, audio
Oh,
clips.
sorry. Yeah, I'll find the sound bites and I'll do it for you. But
See you later, Kava Gator, or something like that. It is.
uh, I'm not. Yeah, I don't do puns, so you can do them. Um, you got another one?
No, no. I mean, I made a whole career out of doing puns, but no, that's all I got.
Okay. Well,
Hey
those are
guys,
pretty good.
welcome to Functioning Episode 3 with Jody and Tom. I'm Jody, your kind host, 4.5 years sober, comedian, copywriter, and I am genuinely interested in the things that make alcoholics functioning and what happens before and after sobriety. This is my old comedy buddy, Tom. Say hey, Tom.
Hey, I'm Tom.
This is an audio medium, so they didn't see you wave at the camera, but
Oh, okay, gotcha. So me seeing you is just for our benefit.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I guess it's recording it, but yeah, I
Okay.
don't think who would watch that. I don't know who would watch that.
I don't know who would watch that either.
Tom and I used to host comedy shows back in the day. Now we're both sober on our own volition, um, and we are both trying to form a podcast. Trying.
We're doing
But
okay.
Tom, you have something to say today, right? You wanted to talk about something specific.
So, yeah, no, there's actually quite a bit that I want to discuss. Some a little bit of airing grievances, and some just I don't know. It had to do with Saturday, which I'm glad that we didn't record on Saturday because I kind of lost it in that like do you remember like when you woke up hungover and you had that feeling of, oh, I got to get everything together today. I'm going
Yeah.
to apply for a job. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to break up with this girl and go out with this girl and all this stuff.
Yeah,
Um
they're my most productive days. That's how I applied to portfolio school, was in a panic.
oh really?
I got in, I was like, "Oh, dude, I can't believe I got into portfolio school just like on a hungover whim." And then
Yeah.
I found out later that they accept everybody. You just had to apply. So really, the only thing that got me in was that I had $50 for the application fee.
That's funny. But
Now,
you still in a blind panic you still submitted, which
yeah,
you wouldn't get in unless you submit it.
yeah, yeah. Good point.
Um so I woke up um and I did the same thing, or did this thing that I was talking about earlier where I was going, okay, well, I have to cut out kava now. They're really, I guess I just can't ever indulge in anything, um, because I don't have any self control. I mean, we knew this about ourselves, but now we definitely know. Um, and it's like the whole 30 thing that you were talking about, where it's just slowly but surely diet, like doing too much of one thing and going, okay, well, I guess that I'm just an addict, and that this is how my life is. Like I just cannot give myself any leeway with some stuff. Um, so it has to be kind of an all or nothing thing. And then on Saturday, I was still doing that like panic of like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I'm still this fucking addict, and I don't know what to do, and I need to stop. And so I started like reaching out to monastic communities and just seeing, what's up. And so last year there was I spent a long time in discernment of
Wait,
whether,
wait, hold on, wait. I don't know if the average reader or
yeah,
listener is aware of what you mean by monastic communities. Like, you're texting a monk, or were you like on like a hotline,
emailed and texted.
a specific monk, or
I
was it
did
like,
text a specific monk. I'm meeting with a monk tomorrow.
oh, interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess you should talk about your credentials.
Okay. Uh, I'm 3 and 4 months sober, and I have been discerning religious life for the past 2 years, um, as a part of my recovery, as a part of my sobriety. And last year, I spent a good portion of the time looking at the Episcopal Church and looking at the Orthodox Church within the Christian tradition, and finally settling on the Episcopal Church for various reasons. But um, my interest in the priesthood extends to intentional religious living, which in my mind is either cloistered living as a monastic or uncloistered, but still as a monastic in the world. And on Saturday, I had this, like, I've been running away from this feeling for so long that I thought it was gone. And then on Saturday, something broke where the feeling came back in a big way, and I started just kind of in like a blind panic of going, all right, well, let's just see what's up, and just sent out a bunch of emails, sent out a bunch of texts to meet with some monastics and set up meetings with them and see about communities that are in the United States to see if I would like to join them.
To be a monk.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What what led you to, you were telling a story before I told you to do your credentials. So you said Saturday you were hit with
Yeah.
this like I got to get my shit together feeling, and then you were
Well,
like, "Dear Friar Tuck."
yeah. So on
That's the only friar I know. I'm not trying to be.
no, 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 that's fine. That's like most everybody knows that Friar. And I will mention I will give a shout out to Friar Tuck because as a kid, that's how felt like, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. I want to be that dude, just this drunk friar in Robin Hood. But I loved the idea of intentional religious living because of that image. Um, so like last year, I don't know if I talked about this before, but last year I went to a monastery. I spent my birthday at a monastery. I was there for about a week, and this year I came into contact with a friar, and we had a nice conversation. He invited me on a retreat. I got sick, so I couldn't go, and so I reached out to him. But um, mostly, what's been going on since like last September, I've pushed away the idea of being a monastic because I was having sex again, and so that was nice.
Yeah,
And yeah, so I didn't want to like. I love the idea of being a monk, but I do like sex. So
monks can't have
um,
sex, huh?
well, so that's the thing. There's cloistered monks that can't really they like take a vow of celibacy, but then there's other um like
That's what makes
Benedictine oblates.
is that what makes them uncloistered? They're like, let me uncloister my pants for a second. Is that
Yeah, yeah, no, that's
listen,
exactly
this
what
is
I.
supposed to be a comedy podcast, so I'm just trying to pepper in the jokes.
I'm
I
sorry.
can't.
I'm sorry. I should be a little bit more. I'll be a little bit more whimsical with my with
Just
the whole.
wacky. Just wacky, or if anything. No, I'm
What's
kidding.
wacky?
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Um, but anyway, so I was running from the idea of being a monastic because I don't know people aren't like super enthused if you bring it up. Like the priesthood is one thing, but if you tell someone you're like, I kind of love the idea of intentional religious living, i.e., monasticism, everybody goes, "What are you like, gay, or are you like running from something?" Like, so
What are you,
you
an
know,
outlaw? What are you, some sort of gay outlaw? What did you like kill your lover? What happened?
yeah. So I've come into a lot of pushback from my friends who mean well, and of course, I'm in my head, I'm going, well, I'm not gay, so I'm not gonna be a monk or anything. Um,
You
but
might check in if you're gay or not. Just do another inventory before you join the monkhood, because that's gonna sneak up on you. That'll sneak up on you,
it
and you'll
will
be like,
sneak up on you. It
"Oh."
does. It
Yeah,
does. I don't know
you'll
if
get like
like
mid
you know,
rosary, and then you'll just be like, you know, popping a boner or something. I don't know.
yeah, that would be a improper time to have a boner, but I understand your point.
Yeah,
Uh, so
not saying
anyway,
that would make you gay. Having boners at improper times is not the signifier for.
and I'd say like, I mean, you're praying to the Mother of God. I don't think that if you're a guy,
Oh, see, I forgot about that because I was raised
okay,
Baptist.
yeah, you're praying for
I'm
intercession
thinking
from the.
you're talking straight to ripped Jesus, not his mom.
Oh no, 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 no! You're yeah, no. Um, so that's what happened on Saturday, and I was like I was looking forward to talking to you because like my brain was going all over the place. But then I thought like it's probably better that we didn't talk during my like weird panic. Um, so anyway, that was what was going on this week. Before I went to the Protestant service to meet people, to meet young Christians, because a lot of old people go to my church. Young people go to non denominational Protestant churches. And it was just, I hated every minute of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it was, I mean, it's like an hour and a half and it's just guitar music, which is always just, it's terrible. And everybody's going like,
Of
they got their
mercy,
hands up.
of grace. And
Yeah. Yeah.
everywhere I look, I see your face. They had all the hand motions. That's what I was raised with. That's the stuff that I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
all the like the weird like pseudo sign language stuff.
oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
How can it
They
be? You know, it's the thing is they do that like they do like a suspended like ninth chord or seventh. There's a specific type of chord that just really hits that like
Mhm.
that God angle, that like that youth group God sound that just like anytime I hear it, I immediately start praying. And I don't even pray.
Well, I'm praying for it to stop when I hear that. That's all I was doing. I was just like I had my prayer rope and I was just praying while I was there
They
for
probably
this.
thought that was weird because they don't even because your hands weren't up. That's
Yeah,
how
I
they thought.
crossed myself a bunch of times just so that I could say like, "Look, I'm not with y'all. I'm not here for this."
You're like backing away just in case God looked down and was like, I'm not with them.
I'm not with
I'm with
these guys.
you, but I'm
Yeah,
not.
I'm with you.
I gotta ask because I'm curious. Is it possible that the same extreme thinking, because that's a very extreme, thing to do, to like decision, to go
Mm.
in to the monkhood, a monk's hood, um,
The
and
cowl, monk's cowl.
a monk's cowl. Is that what they
Yeah,
call it? The
yeah. Why
cowls of
not?
monks.
Yeah,
Like Batman.
yeah. Like Batman,
I don't
dude.
know what a cowl is. I think. Um, do you think that maybe that is linked to like the same sort of intensity that comes with being an alcoholic? Like I find that like whenever, especially when I get into something, and this is also in part because of my ADHD, but like, like I picked up jujitsu and yoga, and now that's like my main two things.
Mhm.
And I am getting better at it. Um, and there's times when I was like, man, I wonder if I could become like a professional jujitsu athlete. And then I
Right.
realized I'm too old for that. That's ridiculous. Uh,
Yep.
but only purely because I'm too old for it. But like, when I did comedy, I was just like, this is what my life is. And I like sacrificed
Yes.
everything, around
Yes.
comedy. And then like there's just a certain degree of like intensity that comes that I personally think is directly linked to my alcoholism because then when I started drinking, I was like, I'm a drinker. And then I would just be like, that's what I do. And then I just guzzle a gallon of whiskey. So do you think that this is like a similar thing?
Yeah, and that's why this takes a lot of. That's why I put it away last year was because I just figured this is like an all or nothing type mentality. Um, kind of like what you said. Like I am this, therefore I am all the way this. So I'm going to put every fiber of my being into this because I don't understand what gentleness is. Or I don't understand like what I just don't have the capacity. I don't understand what it means to like have elements of your life be a part of your life, not all of your life. If that makes sense.
Yeah, compartmentalizing.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So it's very dialed in, uh it's very
Compart-
focused thinking and it's very intense. And last year I assumed that that's what it was and I thought like that's what this is. Therefore, I don't think that I would be a good religious. Like, I don't think I would be a good monk because if that's the reason that I would join a monastery, then that would be just the same reason that I would leave. Um, and so I was trying to walk a pretty tight rope, but I don't know. The reason that I reached out to the people that I did was just to get their perspective on it instead of, diving fully in like I would want to do.
Were they into it? Were they like, don't do it, man? I haven't had sex in 20 years. Like, he's like, I live in a, were they cool with it? I kind of imagine whoever you emailed is like holed up medieval style. Like they like, they walled themselves in, but they're on the internet. They have a little laptop in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's somewhere in the really back room. They have internet connection, and they
Yeah,
use it once a day.
yeah, and then they get fed
Um,
their one little meal, and they have their humble cottage, and then they like think about God for the rest of the day.
yeah, well, the guy that I reached out to, who I'm meeting with, was the one that approached me earlier this year to ask me, like, have you ever thought about living in like a monastic life? And and we got to talking, and he said, there's no reason that you can't be like, you can be not celibate, you can be celibate, you can be cloistered, you can be uncloistered, but you would be affiliated with this community in some sort of fashion.
You know, my uncle's a monk. Did I tell you this?
No, you've
I have.
never. Of course, your uncle's a monk. Where's your uncle a monk at?
So I have a long lost monk. No, sorry, Munkle, and
Munkle.
and he lives in Mexico, and I guess he's a priest, but
Sure.
maybe I don't know the story, but he Benedictine, I think.
Yeah.
Is that Episcopalian? Episcopalian?
That, that would be uh Catholic, Roman Catholic.
No, no, no. He was what's the one that's associated with the Church of England?
Oh yeah, then he would be Anglican.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So he was that, and
Okay.
then
Yeah, and
he
they have affiliated orders with the Benedictines.
yeah, and then maybe he I don't know. We don't talk. We talk sometimes, and he usually goes
Well,
off
he's
the
really busy, Jody.
rails. He usually goes off the rails every time I talk to him, and he's always trying to get me to visit him in Mexico. But then he tells me that he lives in cartel-held Mexico, and he's like, "Come and visit, just like watch out for the cartels." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Dude,
be careful.
I don't know if like a 70-year-old monk is gonna protect me. I don't know. I don't
Well,
want
that's
to
what
watch.
the
I don't
prayers are
want
for.
to. Yeah, yeah." He told me that he had to do a service in a small town because like the resident priest was part of like the opposing family that took opposed to the people who took over that town. And I was like, you want me to come visit? Like, can we just go to like Cabo?
Yeah. Will they let you come here? Will they let you visit me?
Who? The cartel?
Your uncle.
My uncle? Yeah. I mean,
How
I
long has
don't
he
know.
been a monk?
I'm my own man. I don't know. He's uh he's like kind of a long lost uncle. I didn't meet him until I was in high school because my dad's dad was a drunk, an
Yeah.
alcoholic. Back then, they just called them drunks. And he left. I'm the product of my dad, who was his first family. My
Okay.
dad's first family, and he left in a drunken stupor, and then I guess got sober and had a second family. You know, tale as old as time, Beauty and the Beast, and then that second family produced my uncle, and then like when Facebook became a thing in like 2004, my family was all about it, and you know because they're a bunch of Southerners, and they found everyone with the last name Buffkin and friended them because if like it's not a common name,
Right.
and now there's like they've like tracked them all down. They've had a bunch of family reunions, and he came out of that, and he came to our house, and he had to wear like a special belt, um
Okay.
and yeah, he was really cool. He was like really like probably one of the only family members I like connected with. He was very cool. We still talk. He gave me all the skinny on my family. He talks to me about learning Spanish, all this stuff.
You should send me his email.
I mean, yeah, I could do that if you want to reach out to him. Just Google Buffkin. You'll find the one. His name's Brett. There's only a few. There's one guy who's like a famous Buffkin. He's like a college basketball player. I think his name's James. And then other than that, it's just a bunch of fucking ne'er do wells. And if ever since this country has been a country, even before that, there has been for the entire history of this country, there has been a buffkin on the wrong side of history the whole time. If there's a problem, there's a buffkin that's making it. This is
Like
true.
what?
If you look at it historically, I'm sure there was a couple of buffkins at January 6th. Positive. If not, some buffkin derivatives that maybe have changed their name since then. Like Nufkin or something like that. There was one in particular that comes to mind was back during the Reconstruction period. There was a buffkin that led an angry mob. So natural leaders, always, charismatic to the core, racist as hell. And he led an angry mob against the Republican Party that was trying to register black people to vote in Mississippi and terrorize these new Republicans.
Well, if you're gonna have an angry mob, that would be the reason to have an angry mob.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
that would be, well, there's plenty of other reasons, but
that's the
that's
only
one,
one that comes to mind in my mind.
that's like, very specific,
Yeah.
Reconstruction, 1866, 67. That's when Buffkins were really shining. We could have been something, if I don't know, I guess if Andrew Johnson didn't get impeached. I don't know the history behind it. But the Buffkins were a bumbling bunch who have our moments, and usually it's the wrong moment.
Well, as long as you don't lead an angry mob against voter registration, I'd say that you're doing pretty well in terms of the family unit.
I spend a lot of time and a lot of therapy specifically trying to not lead any sort of angry mobs. And it's really hard. It's hard because I'm naturally charismatic and I also naturally piss people off. And so
You do
together,
do you do that.
I do. And together,
There's a lot of people in Atlanta that really are waiting to talk to you.
that's horrifying. I didn't know that. Okay. I guess I'll never, I guess that will be how I lead my first angry mob. And of course, it'd be in Atlanta, which is a very mobby kind of city.
Well, I don't, I said that. I don't know if that's true, but I do remember you pissing a lot of people off back when we were hanging out in Atlanta, and it was always fun for me because I was always on your side.
Well, I mean, it wasn't even on purpose. I don't know. I have a certain quality about me that makes me drink too much and say stupid shit, And now that I'm sober, I just say stupid shit, but I can stop myself when beforehand I couldn't stop myself.
See, I don't say anything at all anymore. I'm very quiet because the
Yeah.
only thing that comes to my mind is just I don't know. I think comedy ruined my head because I'll think of just terrible things to say, but that are funny in my head. But if I say them, someone has a problem with it. So I'm just like, I can't say anything.
Well, not on this podcast. You can say whatever you want. Because
Okay,
like
good.
when you were saying monastic, I wanted to say monasty. Like, but I stopped myself. I did.
I
And
would
that's
appreciate it. I would have liked that.
that's called sobriety. That's called discipline.
Oh,
Yeah.
speaking of that,
Growth.
speaking of religious communities that I just have an issue with. All right, we brought up the Protestants, and I didn't want I was invited to a service by lovely people, so I'm not going to go in on them. But a couple weeks ago, I was having a real rough time, and I thought to myself, what could I do that would be productive? What could I do that would keep me from even thinking about drinking? Oh, well, I could go to a meeting. I've never gone to a meeting before. I don't want to go to an AA meeting. I'll go to a recovery Dharma meeting. That'll be great. I can meditate with people, meet
What's
other people.
recovery dharma?
It might be Dharma recovery, but the
Well, which one is it? No, I'm just kidding. Uh,
wait,
is that
do
like
you
an
not know?
organization? Is that the name of an organization? What?
Do you not know what recovery Dharma is?
No.
I thought that you might. I thought you might have just because you. you know more about Buddhism than I did, but I got introduced to it by this guy in Reno, and it's using the teachings of the Buddha, aka Dharma, to help people in recovery through the the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, and following those, um, I guess in infinitum, but just um, to lead a I don't know, sober life of recovery, and with the I don't know how to pronounce it, but the sangha, with people that are like minded. And so I went to a meeting, and I should have known that it wasn't a good. It wasn't for me because I went in, the door was locked. I was standing outside. I went to. It was at a treatment facility, so I called the front desk. No one answered. Called. I called. I called. I knocked. I knocked. I knocked. And then this rando dude showed up, and he said, "Hey, are you here for the meeting?" And I said, "Yeah." And he banged on the door. They wouldn't let him in. There's people looking at us, and he keeps banging on the door. And he says, "You guys know me. Please let me in. I'm here for the meeting." And someone opened the door, and we were allowed in, and they all said, "Look, we weren't allowed to open the door for you. Like, staff members have to open it up for you." And he said, "Okay, well, I'll, don't tell anybody. It'll be okay." And we started the meeting, and I'm sitting there, and I'm realizing that I'm the only car in the parking lot aside from this guy. So it dawns on me that this is an inpatient treatment facility. Like, a lovely young woman passed me, and she said, "Hey, are you new? I'm new too." And I said, "Oh, yeah, it's my first time." And she said, "Oh, yeah, I've been here 3 days." And I go, "Oh, okay." So now I'm slowly figuring out what's happening.
Those
We all
usually have
sit.
signs that say inpatient facility. Did you pass
It,
that?
it didn't say that.
I just
Nothing
picture
said that.
you
It just said like
walking
FedEx
by.
call to drop off a package. That's the only sign that I saw.
Oh,
Um, and it had nothing online. I found this online, and so
yeah.
we're sitting there, and we all go around. We say our names. When I said my name, everybody was like, "Ooh," and so that made me
What?
feel weird.
Um,
Yeah, they were like, "Ooh, new guy." So I was.
I just picture a bunch of like just Buddhist alcoholics being like fresh meat, and like
That's how it felt. That's how it felt. There was a guy. There was a like an old black dude who was sitting, surrounded by like three other
licking
younger guys.
licking his lips, just like ready to get in there.
Well, he was yelling at everybody. He was saying like, "You ain't a thug. This is recovery. You ain't a thug. This is
Oh,
recovery."
that's pretty good. That's actually
Yeah, I was
pretty.
like, that's pretty good. It's very intimidating, but that's pretty
Oh
nice
yeah.
to hear, I guess. Um, so we read the Four Noble Truths, and then we all meditate as a group, and we meditate for maybe 10 minutes, and we come out of it, and two staff members are like coming through the door, and they're both coming right to me, and I'm just going, "Oh man, they're about to kick me out." I feel it. I don't know why they're about to kick me out, but they're about to. And they
Yeah.
said, "Hey, I'm so sorry. This is an inpatient meeting, or this is a closed group or whatever. You gotta go." And then everybody in the group started sounding off like, "He was here at the beginning. He's new. Let him stay. What did he do?" And I was just going, I can't deal with this. I don't like this attention. So I just politely left. And then I sat in the car with a very meditative state, kind of like washed over me, and just kind of, I don't know. I had this very blissful state of what? Why? And I don't know, I felt very excluded, and very kicked out of a meeting. So I kind of walked around with that for the rest of the day, you know?
I mean, you were literally excluded and literally kicked out, so that it makes sense why you felt that way.
Yeah, I was just sitting in the car going, why? Like, I have just as much business being in there than as they do. Like, why can't I stay? You
Why
know,
was
what
it?
if I was going to relapse?
Yeah. Why was it? Why was it advertised? Why, like you found it online, obviously. Why is it like?
They said that it hasn't changed. They've been doing closed groups for like 2 weeks before I came, and they just hadn't changed it online.
Oh, well, that's bullshit.
That's what I thought. But I just had this like incredulous feeling in the car, just going, man, I like literally took that was my first meeting ever. That wasn't like an Al-Anon group. I took my first step in group recovery, and I got kicked out within 10 minutes.
How was it though when you were there?
It was really nice.
Yeah, I've been.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
mean,
even get
everybody
through.
looked at me like I wasn't supposed to be there, and that made me feel weird. Like it was all, like nothing against them. They're in treatment, but they were like some grizzled addicts who were all just staring at me. And I'm just with my backpack on going, hey guys,
To be
are we going to
fair,
meditate?
I've been to a lot of AA meetings, and that's
Yeah.
the same vibe you get when you walk in, where everyone just like looks at you, and they're like, "Oh, he's new," and they're licking their lips, and they're like, "Welcome to the community." It's this. It's like,
Ugh.
yeah, it's kind of. I am not a fan of AA. I'm sure it helps people. I know it helps people. I've met so many people that it's helped, especially when I people find out that I'm sober. Not so much anymore, but like back in the day,
Yeah.
like it would be like, "Oh, you're sober? Do you go to AA?" And I'd be like, "No." And I just like couldn't get behind it. For one thing, there's no higher power than myself. I am my own god. And like I think it's upsetting, and I think it's almost morally wrong. It is morally wrong to get people who are at their lowest and bring them into a basement and serve them the shittiest fucking coffee you've ever had, and then be like, this isn't your fault. You are powerless. We have all your we if you keep coming here, we'll solve all your problems. And then
Mm.
all they do in AA meetings is talk about how great AA is and how AA saved their life. And then they kind of like sit around and they tell these like trauma porn kind of stories where they're like, man, this one time I got so drunk. And then everyone starts laughing and they're like, how drunk was he? And I was like, I don't know if this is recovery. And it's like,
Mm.
it's always like some grizzled motherfucker who's like, I've gone so many times, and then he's like, there's always some dude who's like, I just know a lot of people here get really upset. Let me try that. Let me try that impression again. And scene. I just no, I'm not gonna do it. They just get really upset with like they no, they don't get upset, but they'll sit there and they'll tell me like, just so you know, don't get turned off by the religious aspects of AA. This is not
Right.
a religious community. Anyways, let's end the service with the Lord's Prayer. Let's all hold hands. And then I'm sitting there holding hands with like, you know, a bunch of strangers.
Mm.
And then they like clap for you. They make you get up and go get a chip. They all clap for you. And on the surface, it all seems great when you're like super hungover or like super sad because you just like lost everything or because you were court ordered to go there. You know what I mean? But then, like, after a while, you meet people and you're like, wow, you guys are not, you just stopped drinking. Everyone's fucking each other. Everyone's like still kind of mad. And then, like, everyone kind of has that weird energy, which is very similar to the youth group energy that I think you've experienced. And
Mm.
everyone has, like, very definitive answers. And they'd be like,
Yes.
oh, don't smoke. Don't. I knew people who were like, I don't even take ibuprofen. And be like, that seems insane. Always a guy who's like working out constantly, or
Yeah.
some dude drinking coffee at 8 p.m. And it's just like I'm trying to get away from this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
so it's
and
interesting to hear it from a Dharma perspective. And I'm glad that, it doesn't change. No matter what the religion is, it's still the same, you
it's
know?
still just grizzled people who are angry to be there.
Yeah. I'll be
But
right back.
and that's I think that is what um that is what is was so icky, I think, about going to that Protestant church yesterday, because it had that same vibe of everybody is like drinking the Kool-Aid here. And I don't think like, in terms of my own sobriety and in reflection of this church thing, like, I know that I went very intense with it my first year, um, and maybe even my second year, and to see a group of young people together just going, this is what it is. We all have to do this. We're all doing it the same way. We're all um, it made me feel very empty. Um, I remember I left there. My friend who invited me asked me, like, what'd you think? And I wanted to ask him, like, what do you think? What do you get out of this? Because all the things that I tried to find when I was first getting sober were all things that either made me um, confront some stuff that I wasn't ready to confront yet, or it was just filling the drinking void. It was just trying to find something to satisfy that, but it all just left me feeling like I'm not doing this correctly.
Yeah, yeah, because it's only filling that void. You're like, I mean, and I can see how that is helpful, right? Because the main
Mm,
thing I lost when I quit drinking was my community. I mean, I literally, like, all of my friends were drinking buddies. I would go to the bar. I mean, my biggest trigger is loneliness. And so, like, you go to a bar, you hear all these stories, you're drinking. Next thing you know, it's like 4 a.m. You got to be at work in 2 hours, but who cares? You're at someone's house, you're in their pool, like, you don't know who they are. There's a bunch of people around, they're busting out the cocaine. And then you, like, quit drinking, and then it's like, all right, well, I guess I'll just start going to these meetings. And then you're like, oh, it's just like a sad version of that. It's like all of
yeah,
these people, except the meetings always have this kind of like pause at the end. We're like, and that's when I quit drinking. And it's just like, and it's like, it's the same thing. They tell the stories, they meet up, they go get breakfast. They it's
yeah, but
still like
it's still this
weird.
insular place.
Mhm. They're
It's
they
it.
feel they feel one thing that I recognized almost immediately was that they feel special.
Mm,
And when I drank a lot, I also felt special. And I think that's like something that in my drinking and in my sobriety, it's like, oh, I can do this, especially my functioning, because I'm special. Because
yeah,
I'm a special little, like, superhero who can get drunk and wake up at 6 a.m. and, like, do the shit that I can do and then get drunk again. And then when I went to AA, it was kind of that same, like, oh, those normies don't know this and that. And I was like, very, at first, because it took me several times to get sober. By the time I got to where I'm at now, I was like, man, I don't want to hang out with those guys. They make me want to drink.
yeah, and that has been so remarkably influential with my recovery, because I'm glad that I went to that service last night, because what you're saying is um is very appropriate for my experience at that service, because it was this feeling of, y'all think that you are, I mean, uh, to take what you said, like, special, like you think you're saved, therefore this is what it is, like this is your life now, and you're going to do this weird worship service, I guess once a week, maybe more, but this is like a very in group. Y'all all love the idea that you are special or saved, and that is not helpful to someone like me, because there's no I can't say I can't check off a box and be done. Like that's not what recovery is. And so in terms of true Christianity, that's not what Christianity is either. Like I'm being saved. I need help. I need to keep doing this. There's no box that I can check that I can say I'm definitely in. I'm special now. No. I'm always I'm always a sinner. Like I'm always facing trials. I'm always facing temptation because I'm a I'm an alcoholic and I will always be an alcoholic and I will always need help. I will never be special. And that mentality is the only thing that's helped me like sustain this.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely resonate with the, I mean, recovery is an active practice. You know, it's like, for me, it's like yoga. Like it's a thing. There's no black belt in yoga. You're never done. Like you're never, there's no like points, anchor points where you can like strive for the next goal. It's literally just like, okay, I'm going to go do this thing and I'm going to focus on that thing so that I can do other things. And that's how like, recovery is for me. It's like an active practice where everything sort of revolves around it. Like
Yeah.
I, yeah, I mean, it's like every decision is made specifically, to not just prevent me from drinking, but also to get me to a place that is better than where I was. Um, and then sometimes I do that with an alcoholic sense where I'm like pushing and pushing because I'm like, I need to get my life back. And the next thing I know, I'm like writing nonstop. I'm like starting all these projects and never finishing them. I'm never chilling out. And, that happened to me recently. I was going to jujitsu at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. in the morning. And then I was doing yoga at night. And then I'm working constantly, answering emails, writing, like just like stretched fucking thin. And then the smoke rolled into Chicago and I got knocked on my ass super fast and like
Yeah.
lost my shit. I had like a nervous breakdown essentially. And that's when I started like cutting off all my friends because it was also a huge wake up call because I was like couldn't breathe. I kept passing out. I was genuinely like, if this keeps happening, and it will, if I don't figure something out, this is how I'm going to die. I'm just going to suffocate in air because of climate change. And like, it was a huge wake up call to my own death and the things that I want to do before it happens and how I'm spending my time. And that was like, oh man, I also need to like, it was also like a forced stoppage. Like, I gotta stop. I can't go outside. It was like a mini pandemic. It was like having COVID again. I couldn't leave my house, except everyone else was like, oh, yeah, it kind of smells like campfire outside. And I was like, well, cool. I'm dying every time I walk outside. Like, I feel fine. I went for a run. Seriously, that's like all I heard. And it was just like, there were definitely times where I was like, dude, why the fuck am I even sober?
Yeah.
Like, why
Yeah.
the fuck am I doing this shit? Like, I miss out on so many great opportunities to hang out with people, to connect with people. Like, I'm so lonely and I can't even like the people I do hang out with, like they don't really get like what's going on with me at any sort of point. They dance around me like I'm about to like flip out, like, and then I just kind of had to like take a step back and take inventory. And that's the practice, right? That's the practice of recovery. It's like this kind of like a constant, why the fuck am I doing this? Oh, that's why, because if I don't, I'll die. Or like, like if I had kept drinking and smoking like we were, and then the smoke came in, and I didn't quit smoking 5 years ago, and I didn't quit drinking 4.5 years ago, and then the smoke came in, I probably would not. would have definitely have gone to ER or some shit. Like this, the smoke would have forced me to quit drinking, or any other number of things, right? Like I was like waking up in parks and at the end of like service lines and stuff like that. So there's like plenty of things that would have like popped open to like wake me up and get me to my sobriety at some point or not. But if I start drinking again, I have to wait for those things to come again. And then I have to get back on this like recovery train. And the hardest part is getting sober. So it's like, well, maybe that's like the second hardest part, but like, it's just like, it's just an active practice every day. And that's something
That,
that always runs into relationships too.
what do you mean?
I've dated two people who were active drinkers, kind of partiers since I've gotten sober, or three actually. And I'll be like, oh, I don't know if I should go to this bar for your birthday, or like, oh, I know you want me to meet your friends, but I kind of got to go because I really feel like I'm about to drink. And then eventually they were like, oh, man, I'm so sorry. And then eventually they're like, it's always recovery with you. It's always about your recovery. And I'm like, yeah, it is. You signed up for this. I told you this when you fucking started dating me. And now you're upset with me because you can't handle how hard this recovery is. Like imagine being me. You know what I mean? And that's happened at least twice. It's happened recently, it happened last weekend.
Yeah.
This girl was like, sometimes you say stuff and it just really bums me out. And I was like, and the stuff I would say was like jokes. She got upset because I was telling her something about how when I got my DUI, the Uber driver picked me up from the jail and was like, "How was your day going?" And I was like, "Well, he just picked me up from jail, so not great." Right? Kind of a funny joke with the right audience. She didn't like it. And
She
then
didn't
she was
like
like,
that?
no, she got so bummed out. She was like, some things you say just really bum me out. And I'm
Well,
like,
that sounds like a
no,
personal problem.
welcome to recovery. Sometimes it's a bummer and you just got to laugh. So we
Yeah.
stopped seeing each other.
Well, I think that's for the best.
Yeah, me too. But that's part of how recovery is like a constant active practice where you kind of have to always be making, it's always this thing where you have to make these decisions like, should I
Well,
be
and
here? Should I go there? Do I have the space to be in this
right.
situation? Stuff like that.
And I think that like you just saying that made me kind of, I don't know, look at the Saturday freak out a little differently, because I think that what happened was that same adjustment where you check yourself on, like, for instance, ingesting a large amount of kava, where in my mind I'm going, I'm it's Friday night and I need to let loose too, uh doing a little shimmy, do a
Let's
little
connect.
shake. Yeah.
Friday night. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feelings right.
And so I
You know,
woke up the next day.
oh, what a night. I said it's.
Yeah, I want to get into it. I want to like just I just want to dumb down, check out, watch Tenet with my roommate, and drink a bunch. Um, and then I woke up the next day. I woke up 2 hours after my alarm, and I felt immediately like I had wasted my day, which is because my own head. Um, and then I even though it was Saturday, and I had this, I think that like monasticism is incredibly cool to me. Like I do have to kind of check myself on, like, is this a romanticization or is this really cool? I think the highest aspiration that someone could achieve is being a priest monk. Like, that sounds cool, but at the
That's
same
where you
time,
can that's where you can heal your party and also strengthen their weapons and also like lift curses and stuff like that.
that's exactly it. And yeah, you're also like a troll. Um, I I love that idea, but on Saturday I look back on it, and it's kind of that recovery also has this element, at least in my experience, where there's a lot of like self flagellation. Like there's a lot of just giving yourself a hard time because you slipped or you
Mm.
feel like you slipped and you go, why are you so stupid that you can't even enjoy drinking something like kava, which you know you're not supposed to drink a lot of? Why are you like this? Why? And then the whole next rest of the whole next day going, all right, well, I can fix this. I can change. I can be different. I can be better. I can. And you're just living with a crazy person because that's still the addict in your head going, "Oh, I can fix it. I know I can." And but I mean, why listen to that? And I have such a hard time distinguishing between what I need to do, which is extreme in my case of sustaining a recovery, and what I need to do in order to sustain it um, in a gentle way.
Yeah. Yeah, recovery definitely has to be gentle. That was something that was really hard for me at first because, and I still struggle with that, where I'm like kind of like Veruca Salt, where I'm like, I want it now. Like I used when I first got sober, I was like, God, I can't wait till I'm like 5 years from now when I'm like, you know, and now that I'm almost at 5 years sober, I'm like, fuck, I'm still the same I was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's definitely this like immediacy. For me, it feels like I have to alter my timeline. Like I kind of like woke up and I'm like, this is not my beautiful house. You know, like I don't have a beautiful house, but I'm saying like I like looked around and I was like, who the fuck are these people? Like what's going on here? And I also had a hard time with how boring life is. Like super, super boring. I mean, most people talk about Netflix and shows that they watched and like not make jokes at a bar or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Talk about, they don't talk about if snowmen are nihilistic or if they're like absurdist or if they believe in Christ, like we talk about. You don't really find these kind of people in day to day life. And that was like so fucking hard for me to adjust to. And now that I'm like sober, I still struggle with that, but I'm a little bit more open about it where I'd be like, this conversation's boring. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'll be like, do you guys, then I'll bring it up. But yeah, it's just like there's always that energy, that drive to like go for the most intense thing. Like, when I first got sober, I started running and I ended up like running, like I would run like 15 miles in one day sometimes.
That's insane.
And yeah, it's absolutely insane. And then I meet other runners and they're like, oh, yeah, I did like a 24 miler today. Tomorrow I'll probably do like a 30 miler. And I'm like, you're just like an alcoholic. You're the same. That's the same energy. That's the same craziness. And
Yeah.
like I meet people who are like in jujitsu and they're like, yeah, I train like 3 times a day and this is what my life is and my body is in a lot of pain. I'm like, that's because you're not really taking care of yourself. And that's alcoholism. That's the same shit. And then you
Yeah.
meet the same other people who are like really into taking care of themselves. And then you're like, yeah, but you're also like not really putting yourself out there and getting hurt. And you're not doing the other side of that. Like you're just like you're doing the opposite of that to the other extreme level. And then it's like balancing that yin and yang, that like that that up and down, and knowing when your margins are. Like I think like alcoholics have really wide margins where like when we're happy, we're fucking happy as shit and everything's amazing. And then when we're sad, like it's near death sadness. It's like I
Mm.
want to disappear. I don't want to die. I don't want to exist. I want to wipe my existence out. Like Ashton Kutcher in in that movie where he like
Butterfly
zip.
effect?
Yeah, 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 yeah. You know when he like did you ever see the deleted scene, the deleted ending? but they
Oh,
didn't.
where he totally erases himself, right?
Yeah, yeah. He like strangles himself with his umbilical cord as a baby. You know.
I That is one of the saddest movies I've ever seen. I cry every time I watch that movie.
um, let's just. Do you want to just switch this podcast into a butterfly effect podcast, and we just talk about how great that movie is?
It's a great soundtrack. It's really dark.
It's very dark.
Anyway,
Uh, yeah, like the depression is so deep, and so then you have to like, well, not you, but I had to figure out where my margins were,
mm,
and then like sometimes I'm too intense, like the girl the other day who was like, I don't like the stories that you tell. I'm like, well, those are my stories. I can't really hide away from my past. And yeah, they're all kind of sad in a way, also kind of funny. Um, and then,
yeah,
then there's also some people that I meet that are like, you're really boring. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of have to be. You heard my stories, right? I can't do that again. Yeah.
right.
So it's just like it's always about like finding that middle sort of intensity, and even in as I'm saying that, like the stuff that I do is intense. Like my job is an intense job, and it doesn't even to me doesn't even feel that intense. But when I hear about other people who are like, yeah, it's an easy day, I answered 3 emails, I'm like, oh man, that's crazy, that's all you did. And then someone's like, yeah, I stayed late, I had to stay past 5:30. I'm like, whoa, that's late, that's like when I normally leave work. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, and that's I think that's something I was thinking about today too, because I have been trying to fix my sleep schedule for the better part of like 2 months, and I usually get 6 hours or 6.5, and I can't sleep more than that because if I'm too well rested, then things get a little bit too. There's too much, almost like too much stimulus. I need
yeah,
that uh like the texture needs to be a little dissolved through sleep deprivation for me to get through the day. But it it's still there's still a need for me to, like what you were saying, like stretch myself thin. Like I need to get up at 5 a.m. so that I can do this and do that, and then I can start my day.
yeah,
And then my day is still like jam packed, and just finding more reasons to kind of just exhaust myself, because that's what's going to keep me going for whatever reason. But finding that level of intensity just every day, just so that I can go to bed at whenever I do and go, okay, I was productive today because I did 20 things. Um,
and then God
and
is
I
up
don't know
there
that.
like, he did it, he did 20 things, good
Yeah,
day,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, good for you.
good for you,
Yeah,
Tom, you did 20
yeah.
things.
You did 20 things that you like. 15 of those things were not necessary.
You could have done one of them.
You
15 of
could have
them
done
could
one
have
of them.
done
Yeah,
one,
and
and
it
it
would
would
have
have
been fine.
I yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know about you, but for me it's because I'm trying to make up for lost time, because I spent so much
Totally.
fucking time just like too hungover to do shit, too drunk to do shit, too dumb, too high, and I'm not connecting with people. Now I don't have any friends, and I don't have any money because I spent it all on booze and I didn't make great financial decisions. And so it's like, okay, now I got to pretend like I'm 28 and I didn't drink my life away. But I'm not. I'm 38 and I did drink my life away. And I need to like slow down and like figure out what to do. Like it's like that scene in Apollo 13 when they dump all the shit on the table and they're like, "All right, fellas, this is what they have up there. Let's try to figure out how to make them oxygen." And they have to figure out a way to make an oxygenator out of like these like leftover miscellaneous shit that they have. They're just like using scraps to make this life thing, right?
Yeah.
We're just going to keep referencing movies only from 1992 to 2004. This is the
That's
only.
when all the best movies came out.
It's true. This is true. Um, so like I think Apollo 13, 1996, 7. Big Tom Hanks year that year. So they, you know what I mean? So like it feels like that's how my life feels now, where I'm just like, it used to be where I'm like, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this, I got to talk to them, I got to send this email, and I got to do that, and then I also need to, I would like take like make a note where I'm like, okay, Malcolm Gladwell said if you do something 18 minutes a day, then you're in the top 2% of it. So I'm going to play guitar for, you know what? Fuck it. I'll do 20 minutes. I'm going to play guitar for 20 minutes. I'm going to draw for 20 minutes. I'm going to write for 20 minutes. I'm going to, do all of these things every fucking day. I'm going to learn Spanish for 20 minutes. And you write it all down. And then you realize it took you 3 hours to write down your schedule. And then and then you're like, well, okay, I'm tired, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I forgot I didn't plan to take a shower, and then you get into the shower and you start thinking, and then you're like, you know what, maybe I should wash my hair. And then you start getting like these ideas, and the next thing you know, you're like, you come up with a really cool song that like fights off your intrusive thoughts, and then you start thinking about your intrusive thoughts, and then an hour goes by, and you're like, well, I just spent all my guitar time and all of the 20 minutes just fucking showering, and then you realize like it's just that's how it's gonna be. Like you're not gonna change overnight. It's not like, what's the phrase, like the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, the second best time is now. But it takes like time. It takes time
Mm.
to grow these things, and that time is gone. And so, but there's things that were grown during that time that aren't really recognizable because they may be like tarnished with alcohol. Like for instance, I forgot that I am really charismatic and funny sometimes, and I forget that all the time because, like I used to go to a bar and be like, I'm going to see how long I can go without buying a drink just by charming people and telling them to buy me a drink, which is stupid manipulative, right? Crazy manipulative, like weird, crazy shit. Like I would totally understand if you hung up on me right now. I mean, it's like crazy stuff. I would get off on it. And now I work in advertising, which is essentially manipulation. It's essentially charm and stuff like that. But it's like I can look back and be like, well, I did develop these skills of persuasion. So I should at least use that for my advantage or other people's advantage, and like try to put on the charm when it works in an authentic way, and like just reaccess like the stuff that I learned in this lost time. Does that make sense? So then it's like it's almost just like it's about just figuring out, like not abandoning everything, but just kind of shifting through that stuff that you have in your capsule to make oxygen out of it. And sometimes it's literally dog shit. And then you got to like polish that dog shit and turn it into some, some French cuisine. I'm not going to I'm not going to expand on
You're
I'm
not gonna go for a pun there? I thought,
Well, it
I,
needed
man,
rhyme. I don't know enough French to like rhyme turd.
well, I was expecting some kind of whimsy from you, but all right, that's fine. But I
Hey,
do know what you mean because,
yeah, you gotta
like,
eat it. You gotta eat the shit. You gotta eat it
yeah,
sometimes.
you gotta, well, it's the shit that you have. You got to make the most of it. But
Yeah.
I relate so much with that lost time thing, and man, you made me think of so many conversations I've had with people who are like in if I'm in relationship with them or friendships or stuff. Um, this is it's going to sound stupid, but the way I talk to them is no, I have to do this because I've wasted so much time.
Yeah.
I have to get up like this and do this when I wake up and like keep myself in check. And the way they'll talk to me is like, all right, well, you haven't lost so much time. But in my head I'm going, yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I I threw away so many opportunities. I threw away so many years just doing the nothing. And now I'm in a place where it's like a different vantage point. And like, if I don't know, you like, it's the same thing with like, you can't judge another person. So if someone wants to talk to me about how much time I haven't wasted, like, they know, but it's all just to cheer me up. I can't tell them like, well, but we're all wasting time. We're all wasting time all the time. But that's not true either. You know what I mean? Like, it's just this, it's still this intense thinking
Yeah.
that is propelling you forward, and it's not always the best mentality to have, but it's almost the only one I have.
And I think it's the inverse of feeling special because it's like, oh, I wasted time. I gotta do more because everyone else is ahead of me. And it's like, like I remember talking to my friend and she was kind of having this issue and she was over 30 and she was like, I haven't done anything. And I was like, you've traveled, you've done so many things that I want to do. Like you've been like all over South America. And she's like, yeah, but that was with my parents. And like they just like to do that stuff. She's like, I haven't really done anything. I was like, dude, me too. And she was like, Jody, you did stand up comedy. I didn't even do that. And she was like, and you did this and you did that. You like hosted those poetry jams. And I was like, yeah. At first I was like, keep talking. I like what you're saying here. But it's like we didn't waste time. Like, dude, the people that we are friends with are famous now.
That is true. That's pretty
Not a lot,
cool.
not a lot of people, not a lot of alcoholics specifically, but not a lot of people have that. Like, not a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I just got a commercial with a guy that I used to smoke weed with. Like, I don't. That doesn't happen, and it happens to us regularly. Like, I was watching a show with Rory Scovel, and like I definitely have been in the same green room as Rory Scovel, and he's just
Oh
sitting there
yeah.
on the
Yeah.
TV, and
Rory watched me bomb at Star Bar really hard.
not a lot of people have that experience, right? I like the first time I ever saw Eric Andre was, did I tell this at the last podcast? I don't think I did.
No,
First
I
time
don't
I
think so.
ever saw him was walking in the Star Bar. He was headlining. It was before he did the show. It might have been like 2012, 2013, something like that. And he just like popped his head in front of my vision. Like I don't know. I was like lost in thought, probably upset, probably hungover, and he just went with this big goofy face and would just like got into my direct eye line and just smiled and then walked away. And I was like, who the fuck was that guy? And I was like pissed off at him for doing that. And then it turned out I was like, who the fuck is Eric Andre? And then, now he's famous. But it's like, or like that time I had to follow Ron White. That not a lot that was a hell like no other. But no nobody has, not a lot of people have that experience. So it's like it's not the time that I wasted. I think it's like last time I was talking about there's like these two dogs in me. And there's the one that wishes that I like had the ability to have done the networking right and the
Mm.
wherewithal to have done the like actually dedicated myself. If I had the right habits, like when we would meet up and write. Like remember we would try to meet up and write and we'd just end up drinking too much coffee and then like shitting ourselves to death essentially and like writing like one joke maybe. Uh like
That neither of us could do because we both wrote it.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or because it was actually something that someone else did like a couple of weeks ago and we forgot. Uh
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it's like that is talking about habits and that's like that's just like a different kind of like part of recovery. Is there's the habitual kind where you're just like, I need to develop better habits that I didn't learn. Like even now, I'm probably not advancing in my career as much as I could be because I'm terrible at organizing, which is why I had to push back this fucking meeting, this scheduling this podcast 3 times, is because I'm just like bad at it. And it's just a habit that I, or like a skill I never really learned. And then there's that part of recovery that feels like, oh, I've wasted so much time, because there's this whole concept that successful people learn this shit while I was drunk. And it's true. They did. And then there's like a whole part of just like emotional aspects where you kind of have to just like look at what you got and be like, all right, how can I make the best of this? What can I make out of this? Um, and that happens just slowly. And that's the part that sucks, because the only resource we really have is time. And the only thing that we own is our body. And so it's like, you're like, man, the two things that I am like needing the most right now are kind of on their way, are like kind of going down. And then you meet some like 19-year-old and they're just like at the beginning of their like alcoholic journey. You ever met someone like that? I met a kid who was like, I
Yeah,
just
dude, I
started
do.
drinking for the first time and I loved it. And I was like, oh boy. Uh, and it's like, you can't even be like, watch out, like you can't be like, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Well, but okay, but that's I think that's important though, because that's something that I needed to recognize, which is in relation to um, the fall of man in Genesis. Like the idea behind that,
with Phil
if we,
Collins.
yeah, with by Phil Collins,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, the
Dude.
super group,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they have a great smash hit called Genesis Chapter 2. Um, it's really good album that's all about the fall of man. And in the it's kind of like a concept album, but the story of it is, you know, Adam and Eve fall because of whatever. The details are important, but they're not important for what I'm trying to say. The fall itself to me is significant just because we all have to fall in some way, because we all will. We're all going to fall. If you have a great life, you will die. And if that's not a big fall, I don't know what else is. But we all do things, we all have moments in our life that is this kind of humbling feeling of, oh man, I am way off track. Or I don't know how this happened, but I fell off and I don't know how to get back.
Yeah.
And I think that that is a essential part of being human. We all have to have that experience because it's the only way for us to develop our own sense of individual meaning making and our own value system, because getting back to a path, you're not going to get back to the path that you might have been on. If you do, like, great, but it's you're going to be different anyway. In any case, you're gonna find your way back to your own journey that is developed through that um, that meaning making and the value system that you build because of that fall. And I don't know. It's what has helped me kind of define the journey, just because this is all inevitable, especially the way that we were living. It was inevitable. Like I should be, there's a few different opportunities for life to have been taken from me just because of various late nights in New York drinking. And the fact that I'm still here does not make me special. It makes me, it's not even like a blessing or lucky. It's just like appreciative of the fact that I am still here. And what do you do now? What is the
Yeah.
way forward? um, because there's
Do you
really
do
no
with the
going
broken
back.
Huh?
What?
What do you do with the broken Tom?
But yeah, dude, there's no way back. You can't go back to where you were. I can't go back to that 19-year-old Tom who's like, "Whoa, drinking makes me feel confident and I can be around people and do stand up too." What? I'm going to drop out of school and pursue stand up with my every waking moment. And you go, "Well, yeah, I guess that was what was supposed to happen to get here." Um
You just drop out in front of the hangar and you're just like, no, Tom, don't. Don't do comedy, just drink.
Just drink. Don't do stand up. Don't ruin your life.
Don't do it.
But yeah, it's the fall is a significant story because it's all our stories, and it's it's something that to get to a place where you someone like you are at. You don't get here if things are going great. Even in alcoholism, like if things are going great in alcoholism, like I don't know, I don't think that there would be reason for me to stop drinking. But if I keep losing everything and I keep losing my teeth, keep busting my face, getting into fights, not doing stand up, not working on myself, then, you know, it's not like I'm moving from glory to glory in that case. I am not in a good place and I need to like check why.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of reminded me about something that I learned a long time ago that I haven't thought about in a while about falling. I I think a lot of people think that there's like when it comes to alcoholism specifically that there's like a moment, right? Like they're like, "Oh man, like I've had so many people like, dude, tell me what happened. What was the night that made you want to get sober?" And they want to hear some crazy story where I fucked my stepmom and like drove drunk and like had some crazy night where I was like halfway through to Chicago. I'm trying to think of something insane, and I'm just fucking fumbling it up. But I didn't fuck my stepmom. And like they don't make that face. And they, but like my point is like they're looking for this like one story, this one moment, this one fall. Because when you say fall, to me it sounds like there's like, Eve gave Adam the apple, and that he chose, and that's like the one like, oh, I wish I didn't do that one decision.
Right.
And I'm reminded of a time at the local, which was a bar in Atlanta that ran a comedy show that was pretty good. I mean, it was a really good comedy show, but the audience was tough sometimes. I mean, the audience was very unforgiving. When you had them, you had them. And like Dedrick Flynn always got them. We got them a couple of times, but like when you didn't have them, they would just like no one would look up from their meals. And there were times in that show when I just wanted to disappear under a table because like people were just bombing so hard. And I was one of those people once, and it was when I was featuring. So I was up for like 12 minutes, just like telling dumb poopy pee pee jokes and like to like fucking crickets. And it was hell. It was bad.
Mhm.
And I went up to, do you remember Jeffrey Stevenson? I went up to Jeffrey
Oh
Stevenson.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
And he
airwolf.
said, yeah, he was great, man. And he was like, man, you did great. And I was like, you're kidding, dude. That was embarrassing. And he was like, no, he was like, you were bombing, but you stuck with it and you like held out until the end of the show. You didn't give up. You didn't get mad at the audience. You just like kept telling jokes, hoping that each one would land. And he was like, and that's the sign of a good performer. And I was like, well, shit. And then later, I kind of realized that like life is a little bit like that. Like life, especially in recovery, you're always failing. And like comedy also is like no one's good at it. It's they're just better at bombing. Like they're
Mm.
better at failing. Like the people who are doing better in my life around me, of course they had like other advantages and stuff like that, but like if they were to meet the challenges that we've met, I don't know if they would like handle it as well. And I think that's like about it's like not about one fall. It's about constantly falling and being better at falling. It's like Rocky. He's like in Rocky 5, he's like it's not about how hard you fall, it's about how well you get up.
Yeah.
And it's like it's about learning to fall well and gracefully, which is also in jujitsu and like longboarding and stuff. But like it's kind of like this constant like I don't know. I've been approaching things like, well, this is gonna suck, but I think I might be able to juggle it and make it
Yeah.
better. You know, I don't know.
Well, and that is um the idea of falling, and it's going to happen no matter if you're an addict or not. You're always going to fail. You're always going to fall. And to get up is, I mean, that's like character, but it's the only way you're going to be able to fall again is if you get up. It's like a bad mentality to have is when you've fallen and you either assume that you can't get up or you assume that you haven't fallen at all, which is a very dangerous place to be in too.
Yeah,
Um, and that is because, like you said, like especially when I was drinking, like there wasn't a moment where I said, okay, well, I hit bottom. Now it's time to start climbing back up because I've fallen all I can. Like that's not true. I woke up in a pool of my own blood on like a subway staircase, and I was missing teeth and I was missing skin, and people were walking past me. It's too late. I get it. Everybody wants to go home. And I stumbled home, blackout, moaning, and just in a terrible spot. And I didn't quit drinking for like 8, 9 more months, you know? Like there wasn't that one moment where I
you
said,
know,
okay, well, that's enough of that.
some of the
Uh,
stories you tell kind of upset me. I don't know if we should see each other anymore. Um, but to think, you had a pool for a minute.
for just a minute in New York with New
Yeah,
York prices, it's
yeah,
pretty
right.
good.
Yeah. I also like the idea of someone running in on you in the mid, like the dark streets of Brooklyn while you're like bleeding from your mouth, going, ah, like a ghost, just like haunting the Brooklyn streets. That had to have been
And
horrifying.
I lived with Andy Sanford at the time, and he texted me the morning after because I guess I passed him. He was smoking a cigarette when I came home, and he texted me and he said, "Hey man, just to let you know, like if you walk around like that drunk, people do take advantage. So just be careful next time." Just going, Andy, I passed you. I was missing teeth. Why? Like this is not like a robbery situation.
He's like, just make sure you have all your teeth on you next time you're walking around. Uh, Damn, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a wild night. But anyway, the like the you oh man, I'm just thinking about that night. That was a great night until that happened. But anyway, the idea of failing is I don't know, it's like just a truth of everything. If you're gonna get good at stuff, you got to fail at it. It's just like stand up. Like the only way I bombed for like 3 years straight until I was good at that. I had people coming up to me after shows, giving me cards to their therapist, asking if I needed a hug. Like
yeah,
they were not into what I was doing. But at some point something clicked and it was worth it. But you have to like if something's worth it, you got to keep going. Um and I mean, I don't know. That's just I think it was a good lesson to learn like we did stand up for so long bombing and then we get better and better and that's probably a helpful tool in the old utility belt to have in this kind of recovery situation too.
Oh, definitely, because a lot of people are like, it's gonna hurt your ego, and I'm like, no, you don't. You've never bombed
Yeah,
in
you have no idea, dude.
front. You've never performed in front of a crowd of like 100 people who all hate you. Like that's not, you know. I think I'll be okay. And they're like, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna hurt emotionally. Like they do that in jujitsu too. They're like, you're gonna lose a lot, and they do it in advertising. They're like, you're gonna have to let go of some of your jokes and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know how to cut a joke, my friend.
Like you're gonna face a lot of failure, and I'm like, I know a thing or two about failure. Um, and that's like that definitely comes from the resiliency of doing stand up and just being like, because we would go and do a set at one place and then do the same set at another place and have completely different responses.
Yeah.
And like, so you never really know what's going to work, what's not going to work. You just keep vibing and you just like pivot. I think was the main thing that we learned is like how to read the situation, which I think helps in my recovery where I don't, at the time I don't think I was as good at like accessing my own shit, but I was really good at accessing the crowd. And I think that's like recovery is like accessing my own shit and like also seeing that, like also recognizing that like there's a voice coming out of this, right? Which is something that comes from comedy that people are relating to but not talking about. Because like comedy, sobriety is like one of those things where people are like, "Oh, you did comedy? That scares the shit out of me. I would never do it, but I love it, and I always wanted to do it, but I just could never do it." And you're just like, "That scared you? Like performing in front of like five dudes who are looking at their phone? That scares you?" Like, you know what I mean? And it's like sobriety is the same. Sobriety is way scarier, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, but it's like the same kind of thing where you're like once you get on the other side you're like, oh, you mean like watching just hours of TV because you can't do anything else scares you? It's just about learning how to fail and being in that constant state of just renewing yourself so that you can fail again, you know?
Yes. That is the whole idea behind uh the word repentance comes from the Greek metanoia, which is all about that refreshing of the mind, the renewal of the mind, um, the moving the mind to a higher, wavelength or vibe or whatever. But it's super important because that is a daily practice of, like you said, like with pivoting, like reorienting the mind toward what is of value, of the most good in your own life. Because when you, at least in my experience, like I don't have a a brain that really loves being oriented toward things that are good. um
I don't either.
I
It honestly
Yeah.
bugs me out when I have goals. I'm like, oh, I reached my goal. Fuck. Like I hate it because it makes me feel old. I like having goals to strive for, but then when I reach them, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll die now. Like that means I'll die.
Yeah, but and just having the ability to, I don't know, maybe it's like just continuously setting goals or setting goals that are nigh unobtainable, but having the ability to just reorient yourself while when you're in the midst of, oh my gosh, I've been watching Netflix for 2 days straight.
Yeah,
There is a better way to live my life. I don't even like doing this. I haven't enjoyed any of this. What am I doing?
yeah. You're like, I can't keep watching the later seasons of Community. It's just not as good as the earlier seasons. Yeah. I know what you mean. And I think that's like, yeah, that's what makes it a practice, is that
Hmm.
there is really no end goal or even medium goal. It's just a constant renewal. It's you're constantly new at recovery. I mean, that's what, in AA they say one step at a time. And that's a good thing to think. Like it is, it's one step at a time. Even when there are times when like I had to take it one breath at a time and be like, fuck, man, I gotta just sit down and just fucking suck for a second and just like hurt and feel really uncomfortable. And then I'm going to get up and then I'm going to go do something self destructive, but not as self destructive, like eat a bunch of candy or like look at a bunch of porn or like, you know what I mean? Like do whatever, go run really fast or
Yeah.
like something that is like some sort of like harm reduction. But it's like that's what makes it a practice is you're never done. Even you're
Well,
never
and
done,
I
you're
think
never good. You're never even at like an intermediate level. I'm never like, yeah, I'm a novice drunk. You're always a beginner recovery or a novice recovery. Like you're always a beginner every day. I don't care if someone's got like 30 fucking years. Like when they're talking to you, you just got sober like moments ago. And they, you know what I mean? And maybe
yeah.
there's like times they've got sober moments ago, and that was several moments of them getting sober, and they've learned a lot, of course, but like it's still that same mindset. Like I still have that same feeling when I wake up in the morning and I that I did in November of 2018, and I was like, fuck, I'm done doing this shit. And I still have to find, like, you're like with your kava thing, like, fuck, I'm done. I'm done with that shit now. I guess I'm done with this
Yeah.
shit. And then it's like, it's all about just like figuring out what is happening. Like, what's the next thing you'll be done with? What's the next thing that you'll have to take up to fill in that hole? Even if it's not even like a hole makes it seem negative, but it's like, it could be a positive thing, but like maybe there's a compromise there. Maybe like there's someone there who is terrible or like stuff like that. Like it's all about like just putting in these safeguards, these measures. You get better at saying fuck, I'm done, but you have to constantly say it.
But man, I still get the this kind of disbelief feeling when I go, "Oh man, I'm really out. I am really done with this, huh?" And it something washes over me where it is that kind of renewal feeling, but it is like this constant humility that overtakes me where I go, "Oh, dude, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm so happy that I didn't drink last night or today, but I have no clue
Yeah.
what is going on. I am I'm not scared, but I'm great and I'm grateful, but I'm like incredulous at this just it just never ends. And I it's almost stupid to say, but like I thought that it would end. Or I thought that I would there's no the 12 steps. I don't like that. I don't like the idea of 12 steps, like 12 steps and then what? We're good?
Yeah.
Like the eightfold path is so much better in that like recovery dharma sense because is it's circular. It just keeps building and going and going. Um if they like let you in the meetings, I'm sure they tell you about it,
Yeah.
but
I'm
like
surprised you even knew that. You learned that in the first 20 minutes, huh?
yeah. Well, yeah, they go over really, really quick. And I just thought, oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, I hope I get to know more about it.
Like you
But
don't.
it's
Leave. First taste
but
is
in
free, Tom.
the whole idea of I don't know more than what I'm about to say, but in like the first step of the eightfold path is like right view and right intention, and there's like mundane right view and mundane right intention where there's these practices that you can take that are just I don't know cultivating virtue. Like there's just nice things to do, like honoring your parents, which might be hard for some of us, but being nice to others, treating like golden rule type stuff, and then it's like the super mundane, which is, and this is how we apply it to escape samsara. And you go, oh, I'm supposed to do a lot of stuff before we get there. Like I'm supposed to really work on myself, and it is never ending. And
Yeah,
then
and then
maybe
you do it multiple lifetimes.
right, and that helps. That's a helpful mentality to have too. Like there is no ending to this, and I have time to work on this. I
Yeah,
mean, I hope I don't forget all this in the next life, but
I probably did. Yeah. I mean, that's again, like that's the practice. I mean, to me, a practice is no goals in sight. There's no future or past. It's just the doing of the thing. So,
hmm
like when, yoga is a practice, and that's kind of, I learned a lot through that just because it's like, yeah, I'm getting better at yoga and I can do side crow, which is cool. And I can
that's pretty
balance.
cool.
I've been working on my handstands, which is cool. But then I like go into a class and there's this one yoga teacher in particular that is very uh, interested in like the minutia of the movements. And so she'll be like, all right, do this very basic move like downward dog. And then she'd be like, all right, make sure your pinky toe is touching. And then suddenly downward dog hurts like hell. This thing that I do all the time feels like I just did it for the first time because of this small little movement. And then she'd be like, all right, now tuck in your pelvic floor so that it's like shift your posterior tilt. And then you do that and you're like, I don't even know what my body feels like anymore. Like it's just like a whole new thing. And it's all of these like little shifts. And that's what makes it a practice. And it's constantly going to be like that because your body's always degrading. And it's like there's never an ideal. There's never an end goal or a moment. It's not like a career where you're like, finally, I'm the president of this company, or like, I did it. I'm on Leno or Conan or whatever.
Yeah, I'm on Letterman, or
Yeah.
I
Or
made it to Carson's couch.
I went back in the past. And it's like that's even comedy is like that in a lot of ways. Like it's just like people who've been on Conan are still doing like little open mics and shit. Ask Andy
Yeah,
Samberg.
there were the one of the best to ever do it, Stuart Huff. Shout out Stuart Huff. He was talking about seeing George Carlin go up at like maybe not an open mic, but basically an open mic. And George Carlin went out there with a notebook and he like put it down on the stool and he said, "Is it okay if I work out some stuff with y'all?" And of course, all the comedians were like, "Oh my gosh, of course." But Stuart Huff's point was just saying like it just never ends. Like he was, on his way out, and he still went up with like premises to try to just see if anything was gonna hit the wall. And the idea that, I mean, to think of like George Carlin going out with like a composition notebook and just kind of going, all right, let's see what works.
Yeah.
That's that's the practice. Like it doesn't end, and we're always trying to get better, and we don't know what works. We'll always be trying to find what works.
Yeah, I think where I struggle is the George Carlin that we all know. Like when do you put the notebook down every now and again and you just fucking blast out all the stuff that you've learned? And that's where I'm trying to get at. That's the hardest part, but maybe we
Well,
should.
okay. Look, oh yeah, do you want to wrap it up?
Okay, maybe. I mean, we're going on 2 hours. Uh, what were you gonna say though?
Well, I was just gonna ask, like, what do you mean? Like, what is like blasting it out mean to you?
Well, I got so used to holding on to those early moments, like being at the open mics and even just like the first parts of sobriety, that like I don't take into account the things that I do know how to do. I mean, just like in comedy, like I wasn't great, but there were times when I would really fucking grab the stage sometimes and like really get the audience sometimes. And it was like I would go up super nervous. I remember specifically this one time I smoked like a whole pack of cigarettes from at Star Bar. From the time I found out I was going first to the time that I went, which was like within 2 hours or some shit, I smoked like a whole pack of cigarettes. I was so nervous. And right when I gave my first joke, the whole audience cracked up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I know how to do this." And I never give my I do that at work. I do that in my like personal life. I don't speak up. Even this podcast is my attempt of being like, I do know what I'm talking about. I do
Mm.
know what I'm doing. Um, I didn't just get like my knees knocked out from under me with sobriety, and I'm not always like at this beginning moment. I have to remember that I am in a lot of ways, but I also need to take on these new challenges, and that there are people out there who want to hear what I have to say. And that's just about like self-worth and like a lot of the things that I struggle with my own sobriety is about like, oh, like I drank so I could disappear. And now that I'm sober, I feel like I truly disappeared, and I'm trying to like be like, well, if I reappear, what do I look like? What do I sound like? What do I believe?
You're
What are my
trying to
jokes?
build the
My values?
confidence to lead an angry mob. You're trying to step into the leadership position that all
Buffing
buffkins.
leadership. I know,
Yeah.
on the wrong side of history. Which just brings me to my main point of this podcast, and that's that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. And I just, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It was a fair election. And if it was stolen, then thank God.
I think that's a great place to end it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So this has been episode 3. I think we're going to call it failing, just failing, the practice of failing.
Failing.
Yeah.
The practice of failing.
Practice of failing and falling. And yeah, tune in. Hopefully we'll start uploading these soon. So tune in at a regular time and we will have them.
Great pitch.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.